The Capitals get a true steal by drafting Andrew Cristall at number 40.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen or view of the day. Yes, this podcast is also available in video form, so head on over to YouTube and check it out. My name is Dan Holman. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, so welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. In today's episode, we will talk about how the Capitals got a true steal at number 40 in Andrew Cristall, a player that Connor Bedard said is the smartest player he has ever played with. We'll talk about that in the show. And then we will summarize the draft picks that the Caps have made so far. They actually even drafted another goalie in this year's draft, so that's exciting. But just to get it going here, Ryan Leonard, what kind of player did the Capitals draft in Ryan Leonard? And if you're an everydayer, you know that I spoke about him last night, but now that there's been more time for interviews and stuff like that to come out, we learn more about what kind of player he is. I'm most excited for what Leonard brings to this team. You got a real pest on this team. You got a real tough guy on this team. That is how he is being summarized on what kind of player he is, but not to just paint him as a goon, as this tough guy, a legitimate goal scorer, a guy that's got a good goal scoring touch. He's got good hands. And I think that the sky is the ceiling for this guy. And I think that the potential is just there to be one of the best players to come on this team draft wise in years. The Caps used the number 8 pick in Wednesday's NHL draft, their highest selection in 16 years, to choose the 6-foot, 190-pound right wing from the U.S. National Team Development Program, adding a high-end prospect to a pipeline that sorely needs a boost. What is one of the things that we hear about all the time? Again, if you're an everydayer, you know that we talk about this team needs to get younger. It needs to get faster. The Capitals knocked it out of the park in this year's draft, not just with Leonard, but also in Cristall, who we'll talk about in the next segment, a player that should have been drafted that much higher. There were a lot of presents that were kind of dropped into the Capitals' lap, and they made the most of it. And that goes, the things go to Ross Mahoney in his crew. I actually thought he was probably going to go 2 or 3 spots ahead of us. Assistant GM Ross Mahoney said, so we're really excited that he was there. And ultimately, let's get down to brass tacks. The Capitals wanted to get Matvei Michkov. They wanted to, but who was ahead of them were the Philadelphia Flyers, and they were most happy that he was available, and they scooped him up. What is one of the things that we know is that the Capitals wanted to make a trade at number 5 with the Habs, but the Habs saw Reinbacher, a player that they had laser focus on, and they didn't want to budge on it. Ultimately, I think the potential was there that the Capitals could have got Matvei Michkov, but they ended up getting a really great player. And I don't think that he is a consolation prize. I think that Leonard is that big presence out there, that good goal scoring winger out there that is going to be just what the doctor ordered. Leonard was picked 1 spot after Philadelphia selected Matvei Michkov, a prospect who had been linked to the Caps. After Michkov, Leonard was widely considered the next best player available, and that is why the Caps made the most of it. What is one of the things that Mahoney said? You don't draft based on position. You draft on the best player available, and he was the best player available. Leonard was picked one spot after that. I thought that was a possibility. Mahoney said after the Flyers nabbing Mishkov, you're trying to pick teams that might take him. And I thought was one of the teams that might step up and take him. And they did. So it really wasn't a surprise. No. I don't know about you guys when you were watching the draft, but as I was watching it and it was Philadelphia, I was leaning forward on the couch and watching it and going, please, please, please. And Mishkov ended up going to the Flyers. Again, at the time, I was pretty bummed out. But now that I'm learning more about Leonard, I'm excited. Almost to a certain extent, I'm glad they picked him over Mishkov. I think that he just fits the mold of what is your typical, if there can be such a thing, Capitals player. Heart was pounding as hard as it could be. He said it was really a special moment for me and my family, Leonard said. I'm staying in red, white, and blue, the 18-year-old added. I know Washington fits my style of play, and I cannot wait to get started. And we cannot wait for him to get started. However, we're going to have to wait at least one more year as he is going to be playing for Boston in college this fall. But that's okay. He's a young man. We can let him, develop his craft a little bit. Leonard is the first NTDB product drafted in the first round by the Caps, and he's the only sixth American selected in the first round by the organization, joining John Carlson, Joe Finley, Pat Peake, Kevin Hatcher, and Bobby Carpenter. Last season, Leonard recorded 94 points. 51 goals, 43 assists in 57 games, including 33 points in 22 games against NCAA competition. His biggest goal came in overtime against Sweden in 2023 IIHF World Under 18 Championship to clinch the gold medal. Some people were talking to me on YouTube and they were saying, you recited stats, but those weren't his stats from last season. Those aren't as good. I think they look pretty good. I mean, did they draft Connor Bedard? No, but they still drafted one heck of a player. Asked if getting drafted topped his golden goal. He agreed for a moment, that is. I got to say Leonard began, no, never mind. Sorry, guys. I have to go gold medal for the country. That was awesome. Being with those guys for 2 years and capping it off, it was so special. So a lot of special memories for him playing earlier there. And of course, he was going to summarize what was, more important to him. And he picked getting the gold, of course. So getting the golden goal, I mean, that was quite an accomplishment for him. And I mean, we don't need to take that away from him. But I got to think that getting drafted by the Capitals has got to be a close second. Leonard explained that he admires Tkachuk's grit. Let that sink in a little bit. What kind of significance did Tkachuk have for the Florida Panthers? Hyman's ability to complement star players and Tuck's power. I like to pick and pull they have in their arsenal and put in mind. He said, I'm a guy that always has energy, kind of guy that has a motor that is always going. I love to win. Pretty good loader too. Definitely a big competitor. And that is one of the things that we like about him is his competitiveness, his big frame. The Capitals love their big players like Tom Wilson, and he fits that mold. And that is why I am most excited. He was asked about Tom Wilson. He said with a chuckle, Tom Wilson definitely. Asked if he could throw out a name of a Capitals forward. He said Tom Wilson. So you got to think that a guy like Leonard looks up to someone like Tom Wilson, kind of a similar guy. I know that Tom Wilson wasn't kind of the big bulky guy that he is now muscular wise. But I definitely think that Leonard can grow into that frame, hit the gym, eat the right proteins, that kind of thing. And I think that he could develop his way into being a player similar to a Tom Wilson. That is exciting. So what kind of player is he? He has a real interesting skill set. Mahoney said of Leonard, he can really score. He can pass the puck, and he always plays a real honest game. He's a real competitive guy. So to get that scoring ability, playmaking ability, and that edge that he plays with, that's a real interesting combination. This piece was in The Athletic. So excitement abounds. I am so excited that the Capitals got Ryan Leonard. Again, I wasn't really thinking about him when I was picking, in the mock draft and just the different players that I thought to come here. But the more I learn about him, the more I love this player. And I think he is going to help the Capitals in years to come. And again, don't despair, Capitals the fans. It looks bright in the future. Again, we didn't get the season that we wanted last year, but the years upcoming here, that is the years that are going to be the most exciting for me. All right, so straight ahead, we will talk about how the Caps got a real steal by getting Cristall on this team 40th. Some people thought he was going to go higher. How did it happen? How did Mahoney pull it off? We'll talk about that straight ahead. Covering my nutritional basis for the day literally couldn't be easier with AG1. I just mix one small scoop of water and drink it first thing each morning. Done. I also like that it costs me $3 a day. Pretty good if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with a high quality sourced ingredient. Win win. There is always the more importance put on health, and that is why you all need AG1. It is a comprehensive solution, is what you need from a supplement routine. Then try AG1 and get a free 1 year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Check it out. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals wherever you find your podcast and on YouTube. I have a lot of great guests lined up for you guys this summer. I have John Walton on the show in a couple weeks, not to mention I will have you guys covered on free agency. So make sure and follow or subscribe Locked On Capitals today. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about how the Capitals got lucky in a lot of ways. I guess I'm going to go ahead and say lucky, as they were able to get Andrew Cristall, quite a player that number one draft picked Connor Bedard said is the smartest player he's ever played with. That was in a tweet by Matt Wyrick. So quite an accolade to be given by such a big name player. And the Capitals got lucky at number 40. I was listening to NHL Network Radio. I was listening to the Daily Faceoff, all these shows. They said the most exciting thing to happen on the next day of the draft, round 2 and beyond, is Cristall. Where is he going to go? How was it that he was available to the Capitals? I guess I don't want to think about it too much. I am just happy that it happened. Number 40, several people believe it could be one of the biggest steals in the 2023 NHL draft. Cristall's ready to make that belief a reality. And again, when I heard that, I'm like, what? How did that get orchestrated? The winger was one of the higher ranked North American skaters in this year's draft, prominent for his elite playmaking ability, creativity, and the ability to make the most out of his time and space available to him. Again, the accolades talking about whatever team gets Cristall is going to be lucky. Those accolades were heaped on by first-round picked Connor Bedard. Though he could have been arguably gone higher, he's happy that the landing spot turned out to be in the nation's capital, where he is a good family friend. Vincent Iorio is making waves. It's everything I could ask for, Cristall told reporters in Nashville. Of course, people know of the history, the pedigree of the Washington Capitals, that they make it to the playoffs. So it is exciting to think about that they were able to get a player like that. They were able to get a player like Leonard. This team is looking to be just a really great team and a team to be reckoned with in years to come. Cristall is coming off a stellar year with the WHL's Kelowna Rockets, where he put up 39 goals, 56 assists for 95 points in 54 games. His high hockey IQ and incredible plays took the league by storm, and is also impressed by, like I said, Connor Bedard. He's probably the smartest player I've got to play with. He's a special player, and he's going to make a team really happy. Cristall fell in love with the game growing up while also watching hockey nonstop and practicing for hours. Isn't that always the case about young hockey players? You know, you see them at 18 and they're doing so well. How does it get to that point? It gets to that point because they have been skating since they have been walking, and that is the case for him. He has been skating for a long time, so it only stands to reason that he would be doing well, and he has continued to do well. When it comes to what he brings to the table, Cristall explained that he's exactly what teams want, a top 6 contributor who can make the highlight reels and be an X factor on a nightly basis. I'm a highly skilled offensive player. I can produce at a high rate. I like to bring people out of their seats and, most importantly, win hockey games, Cristall added. So it is exciting about the possibility of what can be with Cristall on this team. Again, I don't know how it was possible that he was available at number 40. I don't want to overthink it too much. I just want to be happy that they were able to get such a great player. This piece was in the Hockey News. The 5'10", 167-pound forward said that there's still work to do when it comes to his skating and adding to his frame, but otherwise is confident that he can make an impact and make his mark in the Caps organization. I feel like when I'm at the top of my game, I will always have the puck on my stick, and I'm always making plays that I can find the right spots to make a pass or take a shot and score. So an exciting prospect, a young player, number 40. How was it that he was available at 40? I guess we will never know. All right, so coming up here, we will talk about the draft picks that the Caps have made so far. Some good, some questionable ones. We'll talk about that straight ahead. All right, so welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So in the first segment, I talked about Leonard and what kind of player he is, a really big upside, a tough guy, a menace that's going to be a menace to other teams, kind of a Tom Wilson 2.0. And then in the second segment, we talked about how the Capitals got a steal in getting Cristall at number 40th. How were they able to pull that off? Again, I don't want to think about it, but there were other moves in the draft and some pretty big names. There was a goalie that was picked. So let's just summarize the other moves that took place at round 4, number 104. Patrick Thomas, center of the Hamilton Bulldogs. Thomas is a natural center and outstanding playmaker who showcased his versatility and is coming off a switch to the wing. In 66 games with the Bulldogs this season, he had 17 goals and 39 assists for 56 points. A center. I like it. At number 104, it's probably going to be a while before he's ready, but a good upside. This piece in the Hockey News there. And the other move, it was Cameron Allen, defense, OHL's Gulf Storm. That pick was at number 5, number 136 overall. After taking 3 forwards, Washington focused attention on the blue line and took right-handed blue liner Allen, who had 5 goals and 20 assists in 62 games. So it is exciting to think about what kind of player he is going to be. The Capitals want to address the blue line. Is he going to be a good option for the Capitals on the blue line? I would like to think so. And, a good upside. At number 7, round 7, number 200, Brett Hyland of the Brandon Wheat Kings. The Capitals used their first 7th rounder to take Hyland, an overage who has been passed on the last 2 drafts. He's coming off an impressive year with the Wheat Kings, where he scored 26 goals and 21 assists for 47 points in 72 games. Again, the Capitals just continued to knock it out of the park this entire draft. And then the player that's got me most excited here, and I know it's down there, round 7, number 206 is Antoine Keller, goalie. Washington traded its 2025 7th rounder to San Jose for the number 206 pick and used it to add its goaltending depth chart with the French netminder. Again, so restocking the tank, what does that mean? Can you read into anything about it? Does that spell the end of Hunter Shepard with the Capitals? I know he's a ways out there. There's still Mitchell Gibson and Garen Bjorklund and Clay Stevenson and all that kind of thing. But I think that the Capitals like to always keep their netminder pool stocked. They always like to have plenty of options because we know goalies move. What is going to happen with the Caps goalies this summer? Well, we know that Fucale is going to the KHL. Hunter Shepard is an unrestricted free agent. Questions abound about who is going to be on this team. So in this last segment, that's what I was summarizing the other activity of day number 2 of the draft. Some really solid picks, but just to highlight it here, the biggest one so far, of course, is Leonard getting picked at number 8 and Cristall getting picked at 40th. 2 really great dynamic players that are going to help this team tremendously in the future. As Caps fans, you should be excited. I know that some people initially, when they heard that they drafted Leonard and they didn't get, maybe another player that they thought they should have got, they got kind of bummed out about it. I think that the Capitals, Ross Mahoney and all the scouts knocked it out of the park. And I think this Capitals team is going to be really great for years to come. And again, you take a look at some of those depth moves there as well. The goalies always kind of catch my eye there because the Capitals have always had such a great knack over the years of drafting just really outstanding goalies. What kind of goalie are they going to have in this draft? I mean, are they done yet? Are there any other picks that they're going to make? I guess that remains to be seen. But just taking a look at Antoine Keller, I'm going to be honest with you. Round 7, number 206, I'm not familiar with him at all. I will be doing some reading up on him, but I do know that the Capitals just historically have made really great selections at the goalie position. Do they have an elite goalie in the pipeline? I don't know if he's going to be an elite goalie just given the where he is in the draft, but he's got to have some sort of intrinsic value if the Capitals selected him. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals. And are you a fan of other DC sports? Well, Locked On has got you covered. We got Locked On Nationals, Wizards, and Commanders. So no matter what team it is, Locked On has got you covered. Just on a bit of a note here, I will be stepping away from the show next week. I will be away for 1 week, but I have pre-recorded a lot of great content. I have a lot of great guests on the show. So if some big moves happen and they don't necessarily correlate with the episode, well, I recorded those episodes in late June before free agency. If something major happens on free agency on July, I will pop on vacation, probably later in the evening, and update you guys all on what's going on. But just as on a personal note and a show note, I will be away from the show next week, but there is still 5 shows Monday through Friday pre-recorded with some really great guests that you don't want to miss. All right, once again, my name is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and I'll talk to you again next time.